You're listening to Mind the Gap with Michael Comyn. In today's episode, Michael reflects on a quiet but unsettling question. In a world filled with constant news of war, political unrest, and global uncertainty, is it acceptable to feel content? Or does contentment somehow mean we've stopped caring? Drawing on insights from Stoic philosophy, modern psychology, and the work of researchers such as Barbara Fredrickson and Viktor Frankl, Michael explores the difference between indifference and emotional steadiness. He reflects on how the human nervous system responds to global crises, why chronic agitation can quietly erode compassion, and how creating small moments of certainty in our daily lives can restore clarity when resilience feels low. This is an episode about finding steadiness in an unsettled world, and about the ripple effect that emotional tone can have on the people around us. The title of today's episode, Contentment in a Burning World. Here's Michael.
Have you ever felt calm while the world seemed in crisis? Have you noticed an uneasy quiet when the news is loud? Well, last night I sat quietly, hands around a mug of coffee. Silence pressed in from all sides. There was comfort in the quiet, but also a sense of unease, like being stuck between two worlds. I wondered, should I be doing more? Is it right to feel peace while others suffer? I noticed my breath slow, tensions easing from my shoulders, and yet questions flickered in my mind. My comfort was real, but so was my awareness of distant suffering. The coffee machine reset, the stillness enveloped the house, and quiet filled every room. Outside, life continued. Cars passed, a dog barked down the road. It was a quiet evening, the kind most of us take for granted, even as the world inside and out felt divided. Meanwhile, inside, images from war filled the television screen. On the TV, the news showed footage from the Middle East. Buildings split open, families moving through rubble, and leaders spoke of retaliation and defence. This sharp contrast between the calm around me and the images on the screen brought an uncomfortable realization, bridging my experience with the greater world. At that time, sitting in a peaceful room thousands of miles away, I felt calm, completely calm, not joyful, not detached, but calm. And almost immediately, another thought arrived, fast and unexpected. Am I allowed to feel content while others are suffering? Many believe that feeling steady amid turmoil means we're not paying attention, or worse, that we don't care. Compassion and emotional fusion differ. Empathy lets us feel with others and moves us to care. Fusion is taking on another's pain until it drowns us. Empathy helps us comfort a grieving friend. Fusion sweeps us up so much that we cannot help. The challenge is caring deeply without losing ourselves. That keeps us steady enough to be useful. So that tension is worth a closer look. Contentment does not mean we stop caring. They can coexist. To understand this, consider that contentment is widely misunderstood. Most people overlook this. Contentment is not indifference, not a lack of concern, not emotional distance, not a careless shrug. It's not ignorance, not at all, and it's certainly not moral laziness. Contentment happens when the body feels safe. Danger signals stop. Notice your body in the chair, your breath, and your feet on the floor. They're all small signs of safety. Contentment often comes from such awareness. Often it happens without us noticing. The body feels safe, even if only for a moment. Our bodies evolved for proximity. A rival approached the tribe, a predator at the edge of the clearing. The human nervous system is exquisitely designed to respond to physical danger. The body is not built for non-stop global suffering. Constant news makes us anxious and makes it harder to sleep. Over time, this drains us. We tire. Bodies and mind weakens. We're not meant for constant alertness, and if you notice yourself becoming overwhelmed, consider setting limits on your news intake. Perhaps check updates at set times each day instead of scrolling continuously. And choose a few trusted sources to stay informed. Creating healthy boundaries around news consumption helps protect our steadiness without causing you to turn away from what matters. This creates a key gap. Our moral awareness senses suffering. Our bodies, however, experience safety. In other words, contentment may arise from feeling safe while still acknowledging that suffering exists elsewhere. To understand this further, let's return briefly to the science. For example, psychologist Barbara Fredrickson spent years studying how positive emotions affect the human mind. Her findings upended this view. Positive emotions broaden our minds. They help us see possibilities, not just threats. When fear eases, we see needs and find ways to help. A grounded person is more likely to support a neighbour or volunteer. Contentment is not withdrawal. It strengthens our ability to care. Over time, these repeated moments build into psychological resources. She described the process as an upward spiral, pointing out how positive emotions build over time. Contentment in particular signals safety, and safety allows the mind to think clearly and creatively. With all this in mind, let's turn to a practical point. When uncertainty rises, stamina often drops. The brain becomes hypervigilant. We constantly scan for signs of danger. But psychologists studying resilience have noticed something interesting. The brain does not require perfect certainty to regain its balance. It only needs moments of certainty. Just a few small anchors to hold on to in the turbulence. Small anchors, small signals, something in life that is predictable and known. This idea is surprisingly simple, almost too simple, yet it's powerful. When everything feels unsettled, create small islands of certainty. Try a short ritual. We'll call it the 3-minute anchor. Set a timer. Do something steady. Make tea, step outside, or tidy your desk. Focus on the details. This small act signals stability to your mind and body. Use it when uncertainty rises, and notice what changes. For some people, it's routine. For others, it's a ritual. I realized recently that broadcasting taught me this. It was long before I knew the psychology behind it. When I worked as a continuity announcer, there was always a moment before the microphone opened. A breath, a glance at the clock, the certainty of knowing exactly what would happen next. It's 1 o'clock. 3 simple words, yet they carried structure, precision, and predictability. And it's why I loved the job. And in a strange way, such moments of certainty stabilized the whole system around them. Listeners knew where we were in time. The broadcast day moved forward. Life looked ordered. Small certainties do that. They steady the mind. In leadership psychology, this idea is part of the concept of psychological safety. When people feel safe enough to speak honestly, to ask questions, to think aloud, the entire group becomes more capable. Certainty inside uncertainty. As certainty appears, things improve and steadiness returns. The pattern's important. Contentment does not come from pretending the world is calm. It comes from recognizing that parts of your life are stable, even when other parts are chaotic. The Stoics understood this long before neuroscience. 2,000 years ago, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "The impulse to seek stability has always been there, waiting for us to use it. You've power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will gain strength." And the philosopher Seneca observed, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The Stoic teacher Cleanthes expressed a similar idea in a line which still resonates today. "Fate guides the willing and drags the unwilling." In other words, life will move whether we panic or not. To widen this perspective, let's bring another voice into the conversation. The psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, writing after surviving the concentration camps, offered one of the most important insights about human toughness. He said, "Between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response." Contentment lives in that space, not in denial of suffering, but in the freedom to respond without collapse. Because when people are constantly agitated, constantly outraged, and constantly absorbing global crises as if they were personal threats, something predictable happens. They burn out. They become cynical or numb. Chronic agitation does not increase compassion, it erodes it. A steady mind is often a kinder mind. If distant conflict unsettles you, it's harder to act. If you ground yourself first, you find one act you can sustain. Maybe it's a donation, writing to your representative, or volunteering. Calm is not the goal. It's the source of moral energy that quietly spreads to others. But a regulated person can remain aware without collapsing in despair. In the end, the central argument is this: steadiness, not agitation, makes real care possible. Grounding ourselves lets us help others even as the world burns. Contentment is not escape. It's the cornerstone for sustained compassion and effective action wherever we're needed. We can sustain concern for the long term rather than burning brightly for a few weeks and then withdrawing. This is why contentment may actually boost our capacity for reasonable action. Reinforcing that steadiness underpins our effectiveness. It stabilizes the ground beneath us, holds us up, and that stability ripples outwards. A calm voice slows a meeting. Picture a tense discussion where tempers begin to fray, yet a single participant speaking quietly and steadily resets the room. Voices soften. The pace eases. Others pick up on that steadiness as if returning to a quieter frequency, and the whole group becomes less reactive and more thoughtful. The ripple starts with one changed tone, then spreads outwards to influence the entire atmosphere. A measured response lowers the temperature of conflict. A person who does not respond impulsively changes the emotional atmosphere of the room. That's the ripple. The emotional mood we carry into a room rarely stays with us alone. It spreads. All of this circles back to that uncomfortable question raised earlier, connecting ideas we've explored. The real question is not whether it's disrespectful to feel content when others are suffering, but how we channel that contentment. Guilt may surface, but it serves no one. Responsibility, in contrast, asks, what can you do now? Guilt saps your strength. Responsibility transforms awareness into action. When we anchor ourselves, we become steady enough to help. In a burning world, contentment is not complacency. It's the foundation from which the real compassion and action begins. If you're unsure how to turn your concern into something productive, start small. You might donate to a trusted relief organisation, volunteer your time with a local group, check in on a friend or a neighbour who's struggling, or use your voice to support a cause through writing, advocacy, or even spreading awareness. These are all simple, tangible ways to channel your care into real support for others. Actions that matter, even if they seem modest. There is no moral arithmetic in which your private anxiety reduces someone else's hardship. Your distress does not rebuild a destroyed city. But your steadiness, your skill to anchor yourself in certainty, is what enables you to think clearly, act with compassion, and provide help where it's needed. In a burning world, contentment is not withdrawal. It's the ground from which real care and meaningful action truly arise. Your sleeplessness does not shorten a war, but your steadiness might allow you to show up better in the small circles where your influence actually matters. Family, colleagues, community. If contentment were only permissible in a peaceful world, no generation in human history would ever have experienced it. History has always been turbulent. Yet ordinary life has always continued. In every generation, despite turmoil, people have found ways to care, to anchor themselves, and to move forward. Contentment is not only possible, it's necessary. It's the steady ground from which we continue, even as the world burns, to make meaning, take action, and offer hope. People still cook dinner. Children still learn to walk, and friends still share conversations. Contentment has always existed alongside uncertainty. Think of it this way. To steady yourself is to serve others better. Steady to serve. Carry this with you when the world becomes overwhelming. Let it become a mantra, a grounding phrase for moments when you need to remember inner stability is not selfish. It's what lets you respond to the world with clarity and care. Perhaps maturity lies in accepting both realities at once. I can acknowledge suffering in the world. I can keep informed. I can act where I have agency. I can create small moments of certainty in my own life. Moments that steady the mind. Moments that restore perspective. Times that remind us that not everything is collapsing. Because from these instances of steadiness, something valuable returns. Clarity. And maybe that clarity is what allows us to care for the world without losing ourselves in it. So to end, here's a question for you today. What rituals or small practices help you find steadiness in uncertain times? I'd love to hear your reflections or ideas. Do share them, and let's continue this conversation. Your experiences may inspire or comfort someone else, just as these moments have shaped my own thinking. Whenever the world feels unstable, what moments of certainty are you creating in your own life? And what emotional feelings are you carrying into the rooms you enter? Agitation or steadiness? Because whatever you carry tends to expand outward. And this wave, steady or agitated, may reach further than you think, shaping not only your world, but the worlds of those around you. So as you move through this world, mind the gap and keep in mind the power you carry.
You've been listening to Mind the Gap. Today's episode, Contentment in a Burning World, explored the quiet tension many of us feel when personal moments of calm exist alongside global uncertainty. Michael reflected on how emotional steadiness is not the same as indifference, and how creating small moments of certainty can help restore clarity when resilience feels low. If this conversation resonated with you, you'll find many more episodes of Mind the Gap, exploring emotional intelligence, leadership, and the psychology of everyday life. Michael's books are also available on Amazon, where the ideas from the podcast are explored in greater depth. For now, from all of us here, thank you for listening. And until next time, mind the gap.